While retirement is generally seen as a time of relaxation and self-focus, God calls us to love, serve, and help others for a lifetime. He has been preparing us for this retirement season, literally our entire lives. In retirement, countless Christians enter a state of spiritual dormancy, not knowing how they are called to have an impact for God's kingdom. The Retirement Reformation seeks to encourage and empower the 50 million Christians approaching or in retirement to embrace the calling God has been preparing in them. When the world says it's time to stop, you can begin to have your greatest impact. Welcome to iRetire4Him, the mouthpiece of the Retirement Reformation, where our goal is to journey from retirement to reformation so you can say, I retire for Him.
Reaching out to the 50 million Christ followers in America who are already in retirement or maybe fast approaching, you've tuned into iRetire4Him, the mouthpiece of the Retirement Reformation. I'm your host, Jim Brangenberg, and of course, I am joined as always by the founder of the Retirement Reformation, Bruce Brynsma. Check us out online, please. Check us out online, retirementreformation.org, retirementreformation.org. We have phenomenal resources out there for you, books. We've got other interviews. We've got connections to our YouTube page. We've got tons of podcasts, so many articles, lots of things, small group studies for your church group, so many resources out there. The ability to be mentored and discipled as a Christ-following retiree, so much out there, retirementreformation.org. And make sure when you're out there, you sign the manifesto. You got to sign the manifesto. You'll see what I mean when you get out there. We're talking about ageism because ageism affects everyone. This is part 3 of a 3-part series talking about ageism. Today we finish our series and for the difference or how the ageism is impacting the Christ-following retiree. Why? Because we believe how we see ourselves is directly related to the messaging we absorb on a daily basis. If the messaging isn't from a biblical worldview, and most of them are not, that worldview doesn't honor and value the participation of retired folks. The message is harmful. We've talked about our understanding of ageism, how ageism impacts the world around us, and finally today we're going to focus on how our faith can help us overcome this age discrimination. To help us gain a proper understanding of ageism, Bruce Brynsma of the Retirement Reformation is here to add his personal insight and expertise on the subject. Bruce, welcome back to iRetire4Him.
Hi, Jim. It's so good. And to be doing this third part in this show on ageism, it is so insidious, is so embedded into our culture that for our audience to really come to grips with, wow, that's true, and how in fact they can deal with that so that they can walk in the path that God has already established for them to walk.
Ageism is everywhere, isn't it, Bruce?
Man, ageism is everywhere. It's some places intentionally, it's some places institutionally, it's some places where it's being internalized by those of us that are in that older generation, and it changes us, everything from health to loneliness to just goes on and on and on and on, and its implications. Because, we are two things. We are a child of God, and we are a friend of Jesus. And so when we focus on that, those are some of the pieces that are important to push back against those cultural onslaughts that are just everywhere.
So we're talking today about how our faith can help us overcome ageism in our lives. What are some of the Bible verses that speak to your heart, that speak to the value of people who are chronologically superior or retired, or both?
Well, it's one of the things that a friend of mine has encouraged me to do is read through a daily chronological Bible. And in that daily chronological Bible, where we are in that process is in the book of Job. And in the book of Job the other morning, I was reading, and boom, there was, 4 verses that talked about the value of older people interacting with younger people. Wow, it's everywhere. Well, here's one. For example, in Psalm, try this one. Young men and women alike, old and young together. Let me say that one again. Let me just start that over again so that you really get it. Young men and women alike, old and young together, let them praise the name of the Lord. So it talks about our commonality of worship and praise to the Lord. And in that context, to be able to demonstrate to a younger generation what praise really looks like, and that praise continues for all of our life. What a great insight. Oh, here's another one from Ephesians. So God has made us what we are in Christ Jesus. Go back to that. God has made us. So we are created, and we're at the end of that creation process, which means we have the greatest benefit that comes from it. God has made us in what we are in Christ Jesus. God made us as new people so that we would spend our lives. That would mean our whole life, not part of it, our whole life, doing the good things He has already planned for us to do. And that plan doesn't stop at 65 or 70 or 75 or 80 or 85 or 90, as we talk about on this show often, that He has created the works for us to do, and we are to spend our lives doing them. One more. Here's from Psalms 145, verse 4. One generation shall commend your works to another and shall declare your mighty acts. And so that talks about a younger generation appreciating the works of an older generation and commending them to others who they influence. And so, as the community of Christ followers, as friends of Jesus, we are able then to be able to encourage each other, to challenge each other, and to realize that God is alive in each of us, whether we're 4, 14, or 94.
Is there one of those verses, Bruce, that just, it's you? It's the verse that you remind yourself of when you get up, when you're working out at 5 a.m, when the rest of us are still sleeping. I mean, is there a verse that is Bruce Brinesma verse?
Well, here's one that really talks to me. It's from Acts, and in Acts 10:34. I really am learning that God doesn't show partiality to one group of people over another. When I read that, I'm encouraged because I'm part of one group. And the affirmation that God does not show partiality to one over the other. And that, in fact, He sees us as a community of believers. All are His children, again, whether we're 94 or 14 or 24. And so that commonality that we have in Christ is something that should be that should bind us together, bringing the unique talents and gifts that each one of us has in wherever we are in that development of our spiritual journey, to be able to bring that together. And that, in fact, I believe is a key part of when Christ said, I will build my church.
Do you think that your faith has helped you overcome the ageism that has impacted your life?
Absolutely.
When we come back, when we come back, I want to talk more about that because we're out of time in this segment. But I wanted to know the answer to that question. When we come back, we're going to hear from Steve Harling about an amazing ministry that he launched in his retirement. And then in segment 3, we're going to have Bruce answer that question and go into detail on how his faith has helped inspire him to overcome ageism in his life. You're listening to I Retire for Him. We'll be right back.
Recreating Retirement is an interactive small group study helping you to move from nothing to what's next. You can join us on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. East Coast time on Facebook Live. Our goal for this study is to provide a group setting for interaction and new ideas while leading you through a first step in your journey from retirement to reformation. Here's the big idea. During the next 5 years, 5,000 small groups will experience this journey of discovery in churches and faith-based organizations across the country. Is your church a place where recreating retirement needs to be planted? Join us online to experience the study or prepare to lead a small group at your church or ministry. Email us at contactus@retirementreformation.org or go to our website at retirementreformation.org. That's retirementreformation.org.
Hey, welcome back to I Retire for Him. As we do in every segment, second segment of every show, is we always bring on a special guest to share the story of what God's doing in their lives. Bruce, who do you have for us today?
Today I've got a new friend that is with us. This is Steve Harling. And you're just going to really enjoy Steve, and you're going to really enjoy his story. It will be an encouragement to you. So Steve, just give us kind of an executive summary of how God got you through those first 40 years or so, and what he's got you doing now.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, it's been an amazing journey. I always believed that God wanted me to be a pastor, and I spent almost 40 years being a pastor. And then I realized, you know what, there's a whole other chapter in my life. And the chapter God has me on right now is to figure out how do I raise up as many workers and as many resources as possible to fulfill the Great Commission. And that's the mission of my life.
And how is that mission now, the organization? Tell us just a little bit about the organization that you and your son have found and the impact they're having. And then we can talk a little bit about, maybe something off the cuff like Ethiopia or
sure,
like that.
That sounds like a plan. Yeah, so basically my son and I started an organization called Compel Global. The basic idea behind it is it goes right back to that verse in scripture that says, I am compelled by the love of Christ. And basically we think of ourselves as sort of the eHarmony.com of missions. We match people that want to give and we match people that want to go with strategic global opportunities. We're kind of a middleman pointing in one direction or the other and connecting dots for people. And it's been an amazing ride.
Well, and you've got lots more to be done. Matter of fact, yesterday I had conversations with the leaders of 2 mission organizations. And when I asked them about, are you having trouble recruiting people? Yeah. And, as a result of that conversation, I'm going to refer them to you and your son, because there's just a huge need of helping people. And in this age group, there's so many of us that are still desiring to go.
Absolutely.
And we're wondering if we have enough value to go, and on and on and on and on. And I know that is. Now God has just also kind of directed your life in a couple of other ways that I think people will find interesting. Tell us about those.
It's an amazing thing to be in this chapter of life. So many different opportunities and so many different things to contemplate and consider. So when we started Compel Global, one of our sort of clients came to us and said, hey, would you mind running our foundation along with Compel? So I am actually the executive director of St. Luke's Healthcare Foundation. And our passion is to come alongside of medical works throughout Africa, primarily in Ethiopia, but going way beyond that ultimately. And again, looking for workers, looking for resources. And it has been an incredible experience, just awakening to the opportunities that are out there. And quite honestly, I'm looking for anybody in the medical field. You've got experience as a surgeon or just about any area of medicine. You've got so much energy still to give to the kingdom. If you're retired, newly retired, boy, have we got a place for you. Lots of opportunities in Africa to serve God.
Well, there are indeed. Matter of fact, you've been gently twisting my arm to come journey with you later this year, and I'm looking forward to the potential of that happening. As it's always great to go. You and I chuckle together. Is that it's amazing whenever we go to someplace different. It's always amazing to find out that God's been there before and He's doing something.
He is,
and then for us to be able to come alongside.
Yeah.
Kind of as a last word of encouragement to our listeners. These are typically people 55 and older, maybe as old as 85 or 90, but are looking at that next stage of their life. What advice would you give them on how to think about what's next?
Boy, honestly, I'm in that chapter of life. And for me, it came down to the realization that I would be bored if I just sat it out. There is so much potential for the kingdom. And we're kind of at the peak of our opportunity to make an investment in the lives of others. And so to me, it's like, hey, you reach retirement age. Don't think about just going out to pasture or something. This is the time to step into the fullness of your potential for God's kingdom.
Step into the fullness of God's potential for the kingdom. Great word. Steve, so good to talk to you and appreciate your friendship. And look forward to what God has in store for all of us.
Oh,
Jim, you got another question?
Yeah, I got a question because I love the fact that you start off. I was a pastor for 40 years and then I retired. But why? Okay. I mean, here's the deal. Are you not a pastor today to pre-missionaries and to missionaries?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's right. I mean,
okay.
So
I just wanted to help you with your language. That's you could, because you said you're
what a guy. So you know what? I think you're once a pastor, you're always a pastor.
No.
The gifts and callings of God are irrevocable. So there's a very real sense in which I continue to serve as a pastor.
Amen to that.
It's not in the traditional sense, although I'm still very involved in local church ministry. I mean, I'm preaching virtually every single weekend somewhere. So still very engaged in local church ministry, but I'm not the lead pastor in a traditional model, if you will.
That's okay. There's very few of those in the country, but there's a lot of pastors in this country. They run businesses and they run organizations. There's a lot of pastors in this country. All right, so here's, because I'm guessing based on what you gave for your resume, you're somewhere in your 60s. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so
I just got on Medicare, so yes, I am in my 60s.
Well, so what? Way to go! Congratulations. There's still money left for you. All right, I'm hoping that there'll still be money left for me when I get there. All right, so here's the good luck for me. Here's the question I've got for you though. This retirement age, this magical stamping that you're 65, bloop, you are now effectively, you should be retired. As you have a communication with your other friends who are in their mid-60s, do you guys have conversations about the unrealisticness that retirement age is today? I mean, do you guys have conversations about this? Because it's one of those things when our grandparents were turning 65, many of them didn't even live to 65.
Yeah. It's funny because I was recently in touch with a class reunion. And it was amazing to hear all these guys. There so many of them are saying, yeah, we're slowing down. We're, looking into our retirement and all this. And it's like, dude, there's so much opportunity. Why are you winding down? This is the time to be winding up for the glory of God. So I don't know what else to say on this point other than this is a tremendous opportunity. And to be able to quote unquote, not be bound and to have the freedom to go out and live the vision that God has put in your life, that's a tremendous opportunity.
Oh, those are some fantastic words. Steve Harling, thank you so much for being on iRetire4Him today, for sharing your story. What's the website of your ministry if people want to go out there and check you out?
Yes, they should check out compelglobal.org.
Compelglobal.org.
You got it.
And if they want to interact with you, there's a contact us page out there, I imagine.
Oh yes, there's plenty of ways to get in touch with us right on that website. All right. And we'll follow up right away.
So if you are a medical professional that you're thinking about retiring and moving away from your current position to do medical work in a different paradigm, please check out compelglobal.org, and they could take your medical skills, whether from a CNA all the way up to a doctor, anywhere in between, you could be used. Is that correct, Steve?
Absolutely. Orthopedic surgeons, the full works. But you know what? It's more than just medical.
Okay.
I mean, right now, honestly, if I had a guy that was willing to go over and be a logistics guy, if I had a retiree, let's say a guy that just retired, who's willing to give 2 years to live in Africa, we've got a huge project. It's an 8-story, multi-million-dollar medical center we need to build, and we need a project manager. Tremendous opportunity.
Wow, you need to have a Facebook page that says, "We need you."
Oh, but it's great opportunity. I mean, what a difference you get to make. You're literally saving lives. You're saving souls. You're changing the destiny of a nation. It's an incredible opportunity.
Steve, I met a guy in the jacuzzi a week ago that fits that category perfectly. His name is Eric, and I will put him in touch with you.
That sounds like a deal.
And if Eric's listening to iRetire4Him, go out to compelglobal.org and get your application started today. Thanks again, Steve Harling.
All right. Thanks, guys.
We'll be right back with more on iRetire4Him.
Our work on this earth doesn't end when the paycheck stops. God calls us to be faithful for a lifetime. Whether you're looking forward to retirement or you're already there, our all-small group study, Recreating Retirement, will help you understand, engage, and activate what God has for you in this fourth quarter of life. Join Retirement Reformation founder Bruce Bruinsma as you consider your past, strengths, spiritual gifts, and your passions, and how they all come together as the call God has for you in these years. Connect with us on our online community group at facebook.com/Retirement Reformation, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, or If you'd like to bring Recreating Retirement to your church, email us at contactus@retirementreformation.org. Are you ready to start your life-changing journey today?
Hey, welcome back to iRetire4Him, as we're talking about how our faith helps us overcome ageism in our lives. Now, Bruce, I asked you this question, but didn't give you a chance to answer right before the break. Segment one, how has your faith inspired you to overcome ageism in your life? Go into that. Has your faith helped you?
Well, without faith, I would be a recipient and a victim of cultural perception of who culture says I am or I should be. But we had talked earlier one time about how critical it is to be able to do the investigation to know what is true. And once you know what is true, and we talked about it in this last segment, just mentioning it, that in fact, I'm a friend of Jesus and I'm a son of God. And so if I know that that is true, that is foundational to my understanding of what my role in relationship to God. And that in fact, he has designed me as a plan for my life that he started, before time began, if I read my Bible right. And in all the different periods in between, it has been just a growing process. And to know that what God says about me and about our relationship and what he is calling me to do, that is much more important than what the culture is telling me. And so to be able to build up the wall, if you wish, to build up the strength to be able to refute what the culture is saying, and then to be able to, that our faith is strong enough to withstand the arrows of the devil.
So you mentioned in our first show on this, part 1 of 3, that ageism can impact our health. When you see our faith helping us overcome ageism, how does it impact our health?
There's been a lot of research that clearly indicates that the attitude that we bring to life and the attitude that we bring to whatever challenges there are that come to us, and let's talk about health specifically here, that our attitude makes a huge difference on how our body responds and how God works through us to be healthier, to be happier, to have more meaning and more purpose. As you know, I've just about 3/4 of the way through treatments for prostate cancer. And I will tell you that it is my confidence in God's plan for my life that I'm able to continue to take next steps in ministry, in relationship, in business, without a thought to the end that, in fact, prostate cancer may bring. And that it is God's timing that will bring the end, not mine, and that I ought to be excited about every day that he gives me, and I really am.
And there's no question. Anybody listening to this podcast understands that Bruce Bruinsma loves life and absolutely fills every corner of his life with all kinds of really incredible things. All right. So how can our faith, we mentioned in one of the past couple of shows that often retirees or people who are chronologically superior, as I like to call them, you keep calling them old people. I don't know why. There's a lot of ageism that's in the local four walls church. How can our faith help us overcome ageism in our church?
When we think about ageism in the church, we've talked about it in other contexts where the church is telling older people in the church that just don't be grumpy and don't forget to give, and because we got important people to talk to be able to be an encouragement to them as God is an encouragement to you in their faith and their walk, and to be able to open up a vision of what God still has for them to do. And our interview with Steve Harley is an absolutely classic example of that. To be able to take a step. So, for example, we have a study called Recreating Retirement. It's about 8 or 9 weeks, and it allows someone to be able to begin to understand how God has blessed them and shaped them, and for them to understand what's next in their life. I think so often the folks that we deal with at church have stopped visioning what's next and are only either looking in the rearview mirror or focusing on nothing.
But there's
And
so
to be able
much.
to, oh, it's so much. And to be able to have some tools, as you always talk about at retirementreformation.org, but Recreating Retirement, I think, is a special one. Goes along with Oxygen for Life, which is a Friday night, Saturday event that we'd be happy to do with any of your churches. But there are ways to be able to challenge people to have what I call that aha moment. Oh my goodness, there really is more. And then when we put God's attitude into that and the action steps that come with it, it really does change our life, can change our church, can bless our community, and can impact our grandchildren and our children. I mean, the impact is just huge everywhere. And knowing that, in fact, you are God's son or daughter and that you're a friend of Jesus is a wonderful place to start.
But we also talked in one of the other episodes that one of the factors of ageism, or one of the indicators of ageism, is people saying, hey, you know what? Time for you to retire. Mandatory retirement. You're getting old. Time for you to check out. When are you going to retire? You said people have asked you that. If not one time, they've asked you 50 times. I'm guessing they probably asked you 100. How can our faith help us overcome ageism in our workplace? Because just because the clock ticks 65 doesn't mean you're done. And honestly, there isn't a single company on the planet that doesn't need the wisdom of people 65 to 75 on the payroll. But they often call those payrolls because of money instead of wisdom. Talk to me about how can our faith help us overcome ageism in the workplace?
Well, first of all, there are thousands, literally hundreds of thousands of businesses that are owned, managed, and run by people of faith. And so that people of faith understanding these issues of ageism that we've talked about and realizing that there are ways to be able to take advantage of the wisdom and the energy and the perspective of someone older in their organization, and then to find ways to be able to facilitate that. I think there's a whole, matter of fact, we probably ought to do a whole couple of studies on what are ways that organizations can utilize older people and that in ways that they hadn't thought about before. And we won't get into that now, but I think that's a real, that's a legitimate conversation that needs to be held. But I believe that when people ask me, when are you going to retire? Let me tell you what my answer is.
Ooh, careful. No naughty words.
After I tell them to get out of my way because I got places to go. But no, that's a joke. Here's what I say. I am already retired. I'm doing exactly what God wants me to do, where He wants me to do it, and with whom He wants me to do it. And I'm so excited to have that meaning and purpose in my life. And so instead of saying, I'm never going to retire and going down that way, I just give them a description of what retirement can be that in fact will bring meaning and purpose and value all to their life and to others. I'm already retired, doing exactly what God would have me do, with whom He has me do it, and where He has me do it. And that then becomes a challenge to them to be able to think about their last years in a similar fashion.
That's a great summary. I want us to close out. You mentioned your Oxygen for Life weekend, Friday night, Saturday event. Why don't you just put a little plug in that? I know people can find out more at retirementreformation.org, but just describe it really quickly.
Well, first of all, for many churches, they need to jumpstart their appreciation and support and of the seniors in their church. And so here is a way to do that, because we bring together on a Friday night for a service. Perhaps you might even call it an evangelistic service. But first of all, it's a time to be able to say thank you and appreciation and challenge to the seniors that are in the church. Secondly, we know that seniors are leaving the church in massive numbers. So here's an opportunity to reach out into the community and to be able to invite them to an Oxygen for Life event that in fact will help them think about their retirement in a way and perhaps even bring them back into the church. So that's Friday night. Saturday morning, we spend 4 hours and we pick 4 or 5 really key topics that are important to seniors, and we deal with them in a workshop situation. So it's a wonderful way for the church to acknowledge and jumpstart a new vision for what their relationship with their seniors can be, to be able to reach out to the community, and for some really hands-on learning to take place. That then leads to what's next is, in fact, the Recreating Retirement workshop that goes on for 8 or 9 weeks, where people can say, okay, I can go from, I need to do something, I need to think about this differently, to how am I going to think about it,
Right.
and what has God prepared me to do?
How do people find on the website? Do you have like an events tab, or how do people find out about Oxygen for Life?
You just look up, when you go on the webpage, look under events, and you'll see Oxygen for Life and Recreating Retirement.
Bruce Brunswick, great conversation in the last 3 podcasts about ageism and just the awareness of it, how we can overcome it. And really, for obviously, we got a few years between us, just to help me be aware of even some of the prejudices and the things that I say, even in my language, even in joking, but it's not funny. So it was just a great conversation for all of us. And Bruce, I just thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Glad to be able to do it, and look forward to our next series.
You would listen to I Retire for Him with your host, Jim Brangenberg, and of course, the founder of the Retirement Reformation, Bruce Brunswick. We're Christ followers, journeying from retirement to reformation of our retirement ideas, so we can ultimately say together, I retire for Him.
Thanks for listening to I Retire for Him with your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg, and Retirement Reformation founder, Bruce Brunswick. I Retire for Him is the mouthpiece of the Retirement Reformation. Most Christians tend to follow the world's pattern of rest and self-pampering during retirement. However, in your retirement, you can be focused on God's unique call to love, serve, and help others. This can be your best season of life if you take advantage of a life's worth of knowledge and experience and combine it with a greater freedom of time and money, and invest it all in the generations both preceding and following you. The Retirement Reformation is encouraging Christians to find and follow God's call in all seasons and aspects of life, especially in retirement. Take time to sign the manifesto at retirementreformation.org and explore the wealth of resources available on our site. Join this movement of God and journey from retirement to reformation, so you can say, I retire for Him. Go to retirementreformation.org.